Hi, our dear listeners. Welcome to my podcast called Defining Moments. Today, I am joined by my friend Tandy from South Africa. I want us to focus on the danger of being double-minded. Here's something that might surprise you. Studies show that the average person makes over 35,000 decisions every single day. Yet most of us are completely paralyzed when it comes to the big choices that really matter. Today we're exploring why that happens and how it's affecting everything from our relationships to our careers. And it's such a blessing to host you on my podcast today. What's your take on the study I just mentioned?
Wow, Bishop Banda, thank you for having me on this platform. It's always a blessing to do a podcast with you. Your wisdom and study on topics is so amazing. The study you just mentioned is a very fascinating statistic, especially when you consider how our modern world has exponentially increased the number of choices we face compared to previous generations.
Well, you know what's really interesting about this? There's this concept called decision fatigue that neuroscientists have been studying. They've found that every decision we make actually depletes our mental energy, regardless of how big or small that decision is.
So you're saying that choosing what to wear in the morning could actually impact our ability to make important decisions later in the day?
Exactly right. And here's where it gets really interesting. Research from the University of Minnesota showed that when people try to keep too many options open, they actually perform 28% worse on cognitive tasks. It's like their brain is running multiple programs at once, slowing down the whole system.
That reminds me of something I read about successful CEOs. Something like 54% of them wear basically the same thing every day to reduce decision fatigue.
You know, that's such a perfect example of what psychologists call strategic elimination. By removing small decisions, these leaders free up mental bandwidth for bigger choices. But here's what fascinates me. This principle goes way beyond just daily routines.
How so? What are some other areas where this shows up?
Well, let's look at relationships. Studies show that people who are constantly keeping their options open, you know, the ones who never fully commit to relationships, report 37% lower satisfaction levels in their connections with others.
That's really striking. And I imagine this applies to career decisions too.
Oh man, the career data is even more compelling. A Stanford study found that professionals who frequently switch career paths earn an average of 28% less over their lifetime compared to those who maintain a more focused trajectory.
You know what this conversation is making me think about? The way social media has probably amplified this whole problem.
That's such an important point. Research shows that the average person spends about 2.5 hours per day on social media, constantly being bombarded with alternatives to their current life choices. It's like we're all suffering from chronic diseases.
That must be creating some serious psychological effects on people.
The data certainly suggests so. Mental health professionals report a 40% increase in anxiety-related symptoms tied to decision-making over the past decade. But here's what's really fascinating. The solution might be simpler than we think.
Well, what does the research suggest about overcoming this?
Studies from Harvard's Decision Science Lab show that people who implement what they call decision frameworks, basically clear criteria for making choices, report 65% higher satisfaction with their decisions and experience 42% less anxiety during the decision-making process.
Those are some pretty compelling numbers. What does a decision framework actually look like in practice?
Think of it like this. Instead of keeping all options open, successful decision makers typically narrow their choices down to 3 key criteria. They're essentially creating mental filters that help them process information more efficiently.
That makes so much sense. It's like having a GPS instead of just wandering around hoping to reach your destination.
Exactly. And here's something really interesting. Neuroscience shows that when we make clear decisions, our brains actually release chemicals that reduce anxiety and increase focus. It's like our biology rewards us for being decisive. And
So, what you're saying is that being double minded isn't just a psychological issue, it's actually affecting us on a biological level.
the science is pretty clear on this. When we maintain multiple competing thoughts or decisions, our cortisol levels increase by up to 15%, which directly impacts our ability to think clearly and make good choices.
That's fascinating. So, what's the takeaway for our listeners who might be struggling with this?
Well, the research points to three key strategies. First, establish clear decision-making criteria before you need them. Second, limit your daily decisions by creating routines. And third, this is crucial, commit fully once you've made a choice. The data shows that people who follow these principles report 47% higher life satisfaction scores.
Those are really practical suggestions. Any final thoughts on this topic?
You know, I think the most important thing to remember is that being decisive isn't only about never having doubts, it's about moving forward despite them. The research shows that even making a wrong decision with full commitment often leads to better outcomes than making no decision at all. Well, Tandi, it was a blessing to spend these minutes with you on this talk. I hope our discussion was of great guidance to someone in the valley of decision. God bless you.